And welcome in, everybody, to another episode of the High Low Sports Podcast. We appreciate you all for joining us here on this Wednesday evening, or if it's one of your favorite places to catch podcasts later on in the week. It is a very, very busy week here in the world of sports, and it is DJ joined, as always, by my co-host Kelcey. Kelcey, the bye weeks are done in the NFL playoffs. We are getting to the divisional round where money is made or lost in some cases. We had a very uneventful wildcard weekend outside of a game and a half. Really, it was a little bit lopsided. We got a college football national championship coming up. It's a very, very busy week here on the gridiron, and we got a lot to get into. We haven't even touched base on what happened off the gridiron in the world of football.
Yeah, no, I'm happy right now. I think that's the best way I can describe it. It's a good time. I'm not going to say the same thing I say every week, which is a great time for sports, which I just said it. So maybe I lied. Go figure. But no, it is a great time to be a Cowboys fan. There's hope again, and we'll get into that a little bit. But yeah, if you're a fan of the Irish or you're a fan of the Buckeyes, you're obviously prepped for this weekend. I know we're excited for it. And then, man, if you're a fan of any of these playoff teams, it's about to get really exciting going into next week.
Depending on which team you are a fan of. Some of them it's about to get exciting. Other ones it might get painful. But we'll get into all of that and a whole lot more. But first, let's go ahead and start our show off with the opening segment known as the tip-off. And the tip-off, of course, is brought to you by our good friends over at SeatGeek. If you haven't heard already, I don't know where you've been, but welcome aboard, because that means you're probably new here. But you can use code BELLSports to get yourself $20 off your first set of tickets. If you want to try and get to one of those playoff games, well, you might need a little bit more than $20 off, but it's a good starting point. Or if you want to go to a basketball game or anything you can get from SeatGeek, $20 off with that code BellyUpSports. And we're going to start the show on Kelcey's Island is what we're going to call this, because if you say it and it will happen eventually, as long as you keep wishing it, dreams do come true. Mike McCarthy is out as the head coach in Dallas. Those who don't know, Kelcey is a painful Cowboys fan, reluctantly, and has been calling for Mike McCarthy to be out of there since before he was hired. At this point, it was basically, at least he's not Jason Garrett, but this isn't much better. Kelcey, you get your wish, but not in kind of a dickish way where they didn't even just fire him. They would let his contract wear out and blocked him from interviewing last week just so they could say, nah, you're good. Hit the road, Jack. So, Kelcey, how you feeling about this? Now, there's an opening in Big D.
Yeah, no, I'm excited, man. D-Day in Dallas, obviously the title headline there on the intro, it made me excited because this is just exactly what I was hoping for. Not maybe the way it's played out. Obviously, as a manager or owner, the Joneses aren't necessarily known for doing things nice for somebody else. This is no surprise that they pulled something like that. A little disappointed because if they really played it smart, his contract technically doesn't expire until the end of the season completely. And so you could have technically done a trade deal with any team that wants to hire him before the end of the season entirely. Now you didn't do that. You chose not to do that. So be it. Whatever. But the big bad Mike McCarthy and his butt aid is out of Dallas. And if you guys don't know that story, it's hilarious. That was one of his encouragement speeches for his team going into New Orleans going into Atlanta a few years back. It worked for a week, and then they got their butt kicked yet again. And that was a season that ended with Zeke on his back after playing center. So, I have nothing against Mike McCarthy as a offensive coach. I have everything against him as a coach in Dallas that's supposed to be a head coach. I think as an offensive coach is where he's always struggled, or where he's always been good at. As a head coach, things get sketchy. And I say this about every coach that wants to call plays. I don't think you should as a head coach. I think as a head coach, especially in the NFL level, you are too worried about the greater picture. You cannot walk away from the sideline at any given time because you're the one responsible for calling a timeout. You're the only one on the sideline that can call that timeout. You're there. You're the only one that can call a challenge. That's you. You're the only one that can talk to a referee and find out what happened. And there are so many different pieces and parts, and you cannot have the important conversations that a regular OC can have on the sideline. And I know there are assistants for that exact reason. It doesn't mean the same things. You see it every time there's a coach that is a play caller on the field. It works better for defensive play callers, but offensive play callers, it is not easy to do as a head coach. You see it all the time with Sean Payton. It works for a couple years, and then it's like, oh, no, here we go. And it works again for a couple more years, and oh, no, here we go again. You just can't have as much control as you would like if you're an offensive play caller and a head coach. So Mike McCarthy just didn't work out in Dallas for that reason in my eyes. I also just don't think he's a good head coach anymore. I think he got a lot of gifts from Aaron Rodgers in Green Bay. We'll be interested to see where he ends up at. Obviously, everybody says it's New Orleans, but we'll have to wait and see. It's all. It'll be interesting to see what Dallas does next. But yeah, as of right now, I sent the text in our group chat. Freedom is how I feel about it. I'm finally free. The genie meme or GIF or GIF or however you pronounce it of him looking at his wrists like, oh, I'm free. Yeah, exactly. That's how this feels as a Cowboys fan. Mind you, you're not totally free as a Cowboys fan because you still have Jerry Jones running the team and Stephen Jones there in the GM seat. So there's not a lot of hope for things to be corrected right now. But maybe there's a hope for a really big Band-Aid to be placed on this, hopefully.
We're getting a cast on that bad boy for now. What's interesting is by them waiting to do it is they missed out on the window to try and interview the likes of like Ben Johnson, Aaron Glenn, some of those, maybe Matt Nagy or Steve Spagnuolo, some of those guys that were on the bye week. So it was kind of curious. I guess those guys were just never in their radar crosshairs, I guess. I don't know. Still interesting how they went about it, though, considering arguably the two hottest candidates on the market right now are in Detroit right now, and you had your opportunity. Now you don't really have your opportunity. Were they going to go there either way? Debatable, but now it's definitely out the window. But I will also say it's interesting because Mike McCarthy won like 36 games in 3 years. Like it's not like he was a bad coach. It's just the way he was pretty much always on the hot seat because they ended in such cartoonishly bad fashion. Like they didn't just lose in the playoffs. You didn't just get upset. You found a way to lose in a unique, comical, break out the Bugs Bunny gif way at this point. Like you couldn't just be a normal loss. Like you talked about Zeke getting plastered on his back, Dak running over the referee to go spike the ball, the quarterback draw. Last year being down, what was it, 4,000 to 7 at one point? Like just the very unique ways they lose. And then this year, found a way to kind of right the ship a little bit there midseason, almost to a fault, since now you're outside the top 10 in the draft. But they obviously don't coach for that. But I do think it was probably about time to go. It's just funny when you analyze it from afar. It's like, wow, they fired a guy who's been to the playoffs 4 of his 6 years there, I think is what it is, with 3 consecutive 12-plus win seasons. But then you look into the nitty-gritty, it's like, oh, okay. Some of that clock management, especially, that'll cause his hair to start to look like mine at that point. So you got to be a little smarter there. What I am curious about with them, too, is where are they going to go next is what I think the question is, because there's a lot of Dan Quinn would be perfect right here. If they had Dan Quinn, this would be the ultimate opportunity, but just probably a year or two late for that. But what has drawn some eyes is one of Kelcey's top 500 favorite players to ever play for the Cowboys, Deion Sanders, getting kind of a little bit of buzz is what we're going to call it. Chances that he might be going to Dallas potentially as a head coach. Him and Jerry have spoken in his own words. So, Kelcey, I'm going to let you take the floor here. How do you feel about prime time heading to Dallas? Maybe they find a way to bring Shedeur or Travis Hunter with. We'll have to see. That's a stretch, though. I mean, picking at 12, that's a stretch. But how do you feel about the potential of Deion Sanders returning home?
All right. If you've watched the show at any point in time, you know I love what Deion's doing as a head coach. You know I'm a fan, but I'm a realistic fan. He's taken over a team twice now who had 3 or less losses the year before he got there. Within 2 years each time, that team was competing for a conference championship. Both Jackson State and Colorado. Say what you will, last year they were still in. I mean, this year they were still in the play, or still in the hunt for the playoff potentially if they had gotten into that Big 12 championship game. They're still a good team. They're a fantastic team, and he's able to turn it around and right the ship. Does it convert to the pro level yet? I don't know. I don't think he's there at the pro level yet. But I think his attitude is a pro level attitude. And that's very strictly, this is a business. I'm here to get my wins, get the rings, and move on to the next season. That's the business, right? That's the business side of things. Like, he obviously sugarcoats it a little bit better with saying, yeah, I'm going to develop these kids and turn them into pros, which is true. I mean, he does that. He's turned more pros in recently in both those 2 schools than they have in the last decade combined, probably. But, you know, it's a situation where you look at Deion as an opportunity, maybe not now, but I do like the idea of Deion down in the future. I have a hard time when the guy's been a head coach in college for less than 5 to 7 years. You know, he's right there at that mark. I think he's right now at 5 years, like going into his 6th year next year. It's close. I think he just needs to, if he could win a championship in the college level, then okay. But then again, I've seen college coaches move to the NFL level and they have a great success where they didn't have as good a success in the college level. I mean, that's just always a possibility. Sometimes, his attitude might adjust better for the NFL level. And as I just talked about with McCarthy, Dion knows it. Dion knows what he has to do on the sideline, which is pay attention to the game and not walk away from the sidelines. Like, he knows how to pay attention to the clock. He knows how to run that system. And he knows how to hire the right professionals to do the job of coordinator, of assistants, of development. I mean, his laundry list of coaching staff members right now are a bunch of Hall of Famers and some of the best defensive coordinator and offensive coordinators in the college game in the last 20 years. Like, he knows what he's doing as far as hiring a staff, and I think that's more important at the NFL level. So I think he could succeed at Dallas. I don't like the idea of bringing Shedeur, though. I don't like the idea of going out and doing that or bringing Travis, and that's just not because I don't think they can be good. It's purely just you're picking at 12. You don't have an option for either one of those right now. I guess there's a possibility of Shedeur, but you're probably going to be reaching technically for Shedeur at 12, which, okay. I mean, it's not the first time you've reached, and you've reached for much worse. So okay. But Travis Hunter, I just don't see him in any way, shape, or form ending up in Dallas unless he goes the route of Deion Sanders, which is Atlanta to San Francisco to Dallas. That's the route I see that taking, not not going to be an immediate situation there. And he's not Travis. I don't think is a bad enough player to end up there. So, no, I think it's a situation where you just I think Deion is a hopeful candidate, and if you take the flyer on Deion, I think Jerry has to let his hands off the wheel. That's not going to happen in Dallas. And I love the chuckle there, DJ, because it's exactly how I feel as a Cowboys fan, because that's just how it feels, right? You feel like there's no chance he does that. But if Deion comes in, he's going to bring a mentality that has not been in Dallas since the last time Deion was in Dallas. So we're going on 30 years now, and 25 years now. But it's long enough that you're starting to question whether Jerry Jones has the understanding that whoever he brings in, he's probably going to have to go hands off. And I don't think Jerry's ready to do that, even though Steven's technically the GM. But yeah, I mean, I don't mind Deion. I don't know. I can't think of a better option right now because they missed out on the Ben Johnsons of the world. They missed out on a Detroit coaching staff that has potentially 2, 3, 4 candidates for head coaches in the next 4 years. But yeah, it's as of right now, this is probably the best option for Dallas. Unless I'm missing one that maybe makes sense. I know Robert Saleh has been mentioned, but yeah, Deion for me, I'm interested. I just don't know if he's there yet.
Some coaches, they're awesome coaches, but they just fit in a better spot than others. I think Nick Saban, for example, one of the best college football coaches of all time in the NFL, that did not go very well whatsoever. And you just have different scenarios like that, which is why I'm curious to see how Bill Belichick does at UNC. I think Deion Sanders is in the same mold where I think he is going to be an awesome college coach. He already is a very good one. I think his ability to recruit young men and develop them, I think their entire team averaged over 3.0 GPA, things like that are things where he thrives. I think at the NFL level, you'd have to take a different approach, and maybe he can do that. Maybe it still works. He's been a pro. He's a Hall of Famer, one of the best players ever. So he knows how to do it as an elite player. Questions I'm curious at the NFL level, can you rally all 53? Can you do it in the same way? And is able to do it without having his sons and Travis Hunter, because those two have been with him basically his whole coaching career too. So it's how do you split them? And if you do have them all together again, is there going to be a weird dynamic there at the same time? There's a lot of interesting things. I'd prefer him to stay at Colorado. I think he's doing something great there. What I would love for Dallas to do, they won't do it. There's 0% chance of this. There's a better chance of you getting hired after all of your tomfoolery you just said about Jerry Jones than what's going to happen next. I'm not saying it's inaccurate. I would love to see Brian Flores go to Dallas, honestly. I think he'd be a great fit there. Rewrite the culture a little bit, put his hands on the wheel. Him and Steven kind of take over there. Jerry's all right, he knows he got results in Miami. It flamed out kind of weird, probably burned a few bridges. I imagine he's learned quite a bit since then. He's been under Kevin O'Connell, who's potentially a 2-time Coach of the Year candidate at this point. I think you can learn a lot from that. You saw what he turned. That defense does not have a lot of A-plus players, but they played B-plus to A-plus football throughout the year. Obviously, it doesn't quite work when you deal with a Sean McVay and Matthew Stafford-led team. That's when that's when the blue chip guys come out and make their money. It's bound to happen. You give him a Micah Parsons, Trayvon Diggs, those type of guys. And offense, I think he'd bring in the right off. He saw the benefit as being that elite defensive coach to an offensive-minded head coach per se, one who still does call those plays. if he wants to call it defensively, he knows the value of an offensive coordinator who can basically handle it. I don't want to say he's going to be hands off because, like you said, head coach manages everything. But sometimes when they have a preference, they want their coach sidekick to be able to be like a head coach, like Kevin O'Connell, Brian Flores, like it, two peas in a pod. What Bill Belichick and Josh McDaniels were, even though Josh McDaniels could not head coach his way out of a paper bag. As an offensive coordinator, he was outstanding to the point where he got hired 3 times, really, but 2 times officially. So I think Brian Flores would be a great fit there. It won't happen. There's 0% chance, but I think that's one of the options in the same vein I'd look at. Deion Sanders is, I think he's building such a good college coach resume right now. I think it's bolder for a little bit longer. I think there might be a step up, maybe somewhere in the future if hypothetically a Sarkisian leaves and then maybe it rolls into a Texas or just like a blue blood program. I'm not trying to say anything against Texas or Sark, but I like Deion in the college level. I think that's where he's going to. I think he'll get the most fulfillment out of it just from everything he's ever said, tweeted, spoke about, etc. I think it also will. I think it fits his skill set better. Dallas, there are options out there, but like you said, it's going to end up being like Robert Saleh, who's a fine, okay-ish head coach who's used to getting shafted by an owner at this point. So it's just going to be history repeating itself. But I'm going to stick with it. Brian Flores, the Dallas is the pick I would want for their head coach.
Yeah, I don't disagree. I don't hate the idea of Brian Flores coming down. Obviously, that comes with some baggage. We all know that baggage. I wish they would have done it the first time around before, he got hired at Miami and Miami let him down. And that whole fiasco, because that was just obviously he's talked about it. He didn't handle things well either. I'm not going to put all the blame on Miami, but at least 75% of the blame goes to Miami for the way that organization handled it. He was a scapegoat. Everybody knows it. And unfortunately for Brian Flores, he was blacklisted for a couple years there as trying to get a head coaching position. He was an assistant and was it the advisor or defensive advisor for a team before getting the job with Minnesota.
Linebacker coach with Pittsburgh, I think, and then officially got the DC job in Minnesota, I believe. But
yeah. So it's like it's a situation with Flores where there's baggage there. So if I'm Flores, I'm looking at the Dallas job as maybe I don't want to do this. And I think that's an interesting way to look at this head coaching search for Dallas. Are you an attractive franchise anymore? Because there's work that needs to be done. You have aging stars that are tied to the money bag right now that you have to figure out what to do with, that are injury prone in Dak. You have an offensive line that needs a lot of work. You have running back core that, there is not one.
Yeah, you have one 12, like running backs covered in April.
Yeah, that's fair. Exactly. But you have one receiver. You have a tight end room that can be good, but can't. Then they disappear at the same time. You have a defensive line that you have a couple good pieces. You have a great piece, depending on if you count Mike as defensive line or linebacker. The rest of the defense, you have Trayvon Diggs coming off the injury. You have Deron Bland coming off the injury. You have a secondary who's a patchwork secondary, but it's not like Flores couldn't handle that. It's just a matter of, is Dallas an attractive enough spot for Flores to leave Minnesota where he's already done what he's done this year and potentially getting better, or that team could be better next year when they don't have to go against Ben Johnson twice a year. That's always a consideration. So it's like, maybe Flores does enjoy his time as sidekick with O'Connell. And then if that's the case, then I don't think he goes to Dallas. But I also think there's something to be said for, is Dallas an attractive market? And I honestly don't think they are right now, because there's just a lot of work that needs to be done. Like, if you turn them around, great. But if you don't, you're the scapegoat yet again. And now your coaching resume is stymied with 2 scapegoat jobs. Is that worth it?
Maybe they just dip into the bag of tricks and go get Kellen Moore and bring him back just because they think they're spiting the Eagles. Who knows? Like, weirder things have happened. The NFC East is very weird sometimes, but there's a lot going on there. We definitely keep track of it, and depending on who they hire, will he be back here with Kelcey's rejoice or Kelcey's pain and sorrow? But we do actually have one head coaching cycle that has already come to an end, and that's in New England, who less than 1 year after basically immediately saying, hey, you know what? Gerard Mayo's our guy. He's been in waiting. Well, he's fired and his replacement's already brought in, wasting absolutely no time bringing in Mike Vrabel, including they don't worry though, guys. They checked the boxes for interviews. I mean, they even did the double graphic of Byron Leftwich and Pep Hamilton saying we completed the interviews, putting 2 guys on the same banner, basically interviewed them back to back just to check your boxes. And that Bob Kraft gets his guy, I guess, but we'll keep this one short and sweet. I like Mark Vrabel. I think he's a really good coach. New England has some pieces. There's something going on there. It's going to take a couple of years, I think. But I don't like the way they got it, but they got a good coach. New England will be fine. You got an elite young quarterback prospect. You got a top 3 corner in the game in Christian Gonzalez. And now you got Mike Vrabel, who he knows how to win football games. So they'll be fine long term.
Yeah, I mean, look, Mike Vrabel's a good coach at times. And again, if you've watched the show in the past, you know my opinion on Mike Vrabel. I don't think he's the best head coach out there. I think he's a great DC. I don't think he's a great head coach. I think he's a good head coach. Nothing wrong with that. But I think you had an opportunity for Gerard Mayo to be a great head coach. But the Crafts did not give him an opportunity. This is another situation where you got scapegoated into a job. And as you mentioned, and I hate that it's so apt that the way you said that, it is really checking the box in their process of hiring somebody. And Byron Leftwich, no offense, didn't stand a chance there. And that's an embarrassment. Like, you had a guy there that I think Gerard Mayo is just left holding the bag at the end of the day. And this is rough. Mike Vrabel, I hope you come to New England and lead them down a Bill Belichick era of dominance, because that's the only way I'm going to ever forgive the Patriots for this type of move, because this is just ridiculous. There needs to be some kind of penalty for teams that do this stuff, because this has happened 7 times in the last 3 years where we've seen a team that's building something proper and they fire a head coach 1 year, if they even make it through their first year at the team, who's not really doing a bad job. The team's just stymied with injuries or their first year in their rebuild. Like, there's too much of a microwave concept around this team's success that coaches aren't given a fair chance. And we talk about this in college all the time. 3 years maybe for a coach is kind of the defining term. And in the pros, it's not even 3 years. You might get 2. But lately it's been you get a year, if that, and good luck. Unless you go to the Bears, in which case you get 3 years and a GM and a new GM.
Then you get a decade.
Yeah. So I don't know, man. I don't like this move really, but I don't dislike the move either. I thought Mayo needed another year to have a fair assessment on what he could actually do. And now that's unless, obviously he refused to go down to Florida with Robert Kraft, in which case I get it. Maybe if I were Mayo, I'd also want to get fired at that point too. But yeah, I don't know. I don't really get this move at all.
The biggest issue with them was that he didn't have for Mayo's, he didn't have Will Levis at quarterback. That was the dynamic duo that the NFL needed. So that's the disheartening part, is to see Will Levis and Mayo on the same team. But I also think, since considering they made such a big deal about him being the coach and waiting, all of this, it was the huge topic at this point last year. And then you didn't even give it the full year. That's why I think it's kind of, there must have been something that happened behind closed doors. Maybe he was a miserable coach behind closed doors. I don't know. Maybe, I know he had some rough press conferences, but like that happens. Like, I don't think you get axed after exactly 17 games. Like, it's very, very weird. And when he took over the team, they didn't even have an actual GM for the draft. They had like GM assistant, fill-in director person. Like, it was weird. So it was bound to go bad regardless.
Yeah, they didn't even have the dog of the GM to stand in to make the draft pick.
Like, it was a catastrophe. So I think it's an upgrade, because I'm not sure about Gerard Mayo, but that's the thing, is I wasn't sure about him as head coach to begin with. I took their word for it, since he was the coach in waiting for 3 years or whatever it was, the handpicked guy. So yeah. I don't know. We'll see. I guess you can spout all type of BS that you want, or maybe Kraft was that upset about not getting the number 1 overall pick. I don't know. Which, you don't really need the number 1 overall pick when you have Drake May at quarterback. He looked outstanding in his spots last year as a guy who was. He was in the category of, I don't know if I want him to play his first year, because he has some development time. He sat for a month and came out of the gates looking pretty solid, honestly. There's a lot to like about him there. There's a lot of Justin Herbert-esque qualities. He's got a ways to go to get there still, but there's a lot of good qualities there. So you don't need the number 1 overall pick. It's nice to have, I guess, but between 1 and what are they picking now? 5, I think, something like that. Like, you're still going to get it. You still got all you could trade back if you want. You still can get just about anybody. It's silly. It's just really silly. So, good luck. They got a lot of nice things to work with there. You feel for Gerard Mayo, but he'll get back on his feet. Maybe DC and Dallas. I don't know.
That's fine with me. I'm more than okay.
See what he can do, because I don't think he wasn't even really a defensive coordinator on a Bill Belichick either, because it was Steve Belichick as the D coordinator. So that's why we don't even know what he's like as a coordinator yet. So we'll find out. This is just very weird. The Patriots are going to Patriots, I guess. You don't get 20 years of dominance without having to pay a little bit of back tax at the end of it, I guess. So maybe this is this is their poop era for a little bit. We'll wait and see. Or Drake May flips it around next year and it doesn't matter. But
hey, they can get a nice third-round pick if they just trade Joe Milton right now.
well, you know who you might be able to get in the third round if you trade there? Quinn Ewers, the quarterback for Texas, who has decided to declare for the draft. Rumors of him possibly getting a $4 million deal to go to different schools, whether it be Notre Dame. There were rumors about North Carolina, a Big Ten school. There's a lot of rumors about places that getting big offers there. He decides he's going to come out and declare for the draft after a solid-ish season. Like, he had some good moments. He had some rough moments. He had the injury. That playoff game against Ohio State was not his finest work. Most of the second half against ASU was not his finest work either until basically overtime when all the chips were down. I'm intrigued because he went from arguably a top 5 pick to start the year to a lot of like the rankings are having him probably dropping to second, third, fourth round, maybe even fifth round, etc. A lot. His tape this year was not nearly as good as it was last year. We'll say, like, there's just a lot of holes. So I'm gonna go ahead and get your thoughts before I go too farther into it. It's not quite draft season. We haven't dove too deep into that, but what are your initial thoughts here? Quinn Ewers deciding he's going to forego the year and head to the draft.
Well, thank God. And I don't mean that in a bad way. The only thing that could have happened this season for Quinn Ewers was him winning a national championship as far as a positive goes. And he didn't do that. Obviously, didn't do that. But again, he had a good showing despite the injuries this year. He was banged up this year, but this is a problem I have with the draft side of him. Is now you have to go into the draft process and have all these injuries analyzed because there was this ankle injury, whatever he suffered midseason, really crippled him down the stretch. He was not the same Quinn Ewers down the stretch as he was in the first 6. And that's where the problem that's what like highlights the problem for Quinn Ewers for me. Because this happens every year. He has some kind of injury. There was a shoulder injury last year. And the year before that, I think it was a back or something like that. And it's just like, it scares me for the sake of, okay, well, you get a half a season out of him that's quality work, like top 10, top 20 draft pick type of work. The other half of the season, you get a third round draft grade. What are we working with here? At the end of the day, can he land in a situation that's going to be successful for him? I don't know, but yeah, no, good on Quinn for going and entering the draft. I mean, look, we've seen 5th, 6th, 7th round picks become starting quarterbacks. So third round isn't a bad place for a quarterback to go. That's for sure.
What's interesting here, if we look at his stats, last year, 3,479 yards. This year, 3,472. Very similar. Last year, 22 touchdowns, 6 picks. This year, 31 and 12. Granted, that does include the extra playoff game on top of it. So, and then some missed games in there as well. Last year, he was sacked 27 times. This year, 31. The pass attempts 394 last year to 445 this year. Completion percentage 69 last year, 66 this year. So a lot of it's very kind of congruent. Touchdowns, they actually did get a little bit more. I think what really kind of hurt him is those games he was injured that you mentioned. Arch Manning came in and looked a lot cleaner. So I think that might have hurt him a little bit there. So I don't know. I wanted to see him stay. He's only 21 years old too. It feels like he's been around forever, but he's only 21. I think him going back for one more year, transfer somewhere else, get just one more year to hone your craft. I know next year's quarterback class is supposed to be a lot more loaded than this year, so I get that. Like I get it, but this year you probably have a better chance of sneaking into that first round just because it's 2 guys at the top and then a bit of a cesspool afterwards. At least for obviously that doesn't mean anything long term, but for his immediate draft process, that's true. But I look at it as if he goes in the first round like a top 10 pick or he gets reached on, he's going to end up as Josh Rosen, which I hate to say that. If he gets a chance to maybe go in that third round or later, he could be Brock Purdy. If he gets the chance to go to a team and jump in off the bench at some point, it goes to a pretty good team. Let's just hypothetical, it's not going to happen. Let's say someone like the Vikings. I know they have a 20-year-old quarterback at this point, so they don't need another one. But the point being, or we'll even say the Seahawks. That's a better example. Say Geno misses a few games in the middle of the season, Quinn Ewers can come in and be like, oh, he's arrived a little bit. He can DK is out there somewhere. Who would have thought? Wow, JSN has 9 yards of separation. I can get him the ball. Give him a chance to do that. So I like Quinn Ewers. We'll get more into it during the draft season. It's not even the end of the divisional round, so we're not too deep into it. I think for long term, it might have been better to stay. Short term, I get it, but you know what? Good on him. And either way, he knew he wasn't coming back to Texas. So I guess this is what he looked at as like, yeah, let's give it a shot. Let's just go for it.
Yeah, and now the first NIL pirate, can we say, or target, captain, whatever we want to call him.
The Jack
He's the
Sparrow of
guy that
NIL.
yeah, he's the guy that first really made the process of transferring popular for the NIL deal, which is kind of its own subject. Playing on that as a big mental health advocate. There was a recent article came out talking about a mental health crisis looming for college athletes as they chase the NIL quote attention economy, which is very interesting to think. Obviously, it's some concern there if you're an athlete going to search. I know if I was in their spot, it's something for me. I'd probably lose a little bit of sleep at night. Be tough making that decision. But thankfully I'm not. Thankfully I'm not in that position anymore. Speaking of decision making, though, DJ, we've talked about this last year. Magic Mind, they've helped us out with that. Helped me out with that a lot last year. Obviously, first time January last year we talked about it. Their mental performance shots. They just sent me a new batch of them now to get me through the new year. Help build that mental wealth bank, if you will, which is something that if you don't know about mental wealth, big proponent of your mental health. You just got to build it up, right? It's just like your regular wealth. Build up your mental well-being. It consists of two parts, though, guys. We got mental performance. You also have your sleep deprivation. So now Magic Mind has sent me over a brand new patch of their sleep performance shot, which is really cool because it helps me go to sleep. It's all natural, just like their performance shot. All natural, 100% good for you products. And it's just going to help you go to sleep, help you stay awake, help you stay alert in the morning. With the performance shot, the sleep shot helps you go to sleep, stay asleep, and sleep well, so you don't wake up with that grogginess. Man, I got to tell you, it's been a great relief. I've had it for now a week, and got to say, been a vast improvement. I hope Quinn Ewers can pick up his own batch of it. And if you guys listening, you want to check it out, head on over to magicmind.com/HLS Sports and enter to get up to 45% off your 2-shot bundle. So it's going to be both the performance shot and the sleep performance shot. And you can, if you do a subscription, it's 45% off. It's a one-time purchase, it's 20% off. Or you can enter the code HLS Sports 20 to get 20% off of a single purchase or 45% off the subscription for the 24-hour pack, which will be, again, both the focus and sleep shots. I highly recommend everybody go check it out. Honestly, it saved me from falling asleep at the job with the focus shot, the performance shot. But then now I can actually go to sleep well and stay asleep, which, DJ, you and I roomed together for a long time. I don't sleep well. So this is something that help out, go to sleep, stay asleep, get all of that positive goodies. Thanks to ashwagandha, chamomile, and the kava ingredients inside of it. So 100% natural, guys. Check it out. Non-habit forming. If you guys happen to have a Sprouts, Central Market, or Erewhon locations near you, they're also available there. So be sure to check them out. But DJ, obviously we talked about decisions. Obviously we've talked about, being able to sleep at night at the end of the day. And there are two fan bases that have slept beautifully recently in Notre Dame and Ohio State. And that's our national championship performers, DJ. How do you feel?
They have not slept very well this last week. They have been nervous, I would say. But like you said, we got the Buckeyes taking on the Fighting Irish. Your former favorite team from when you were a wee lad taking on one of your 2 or 3 least favorite teams in all of college football.
Yeah.
We'll keep this one short and sweet right now. The Buckeyes favored -8.5. Notre Dame a +8.5 underdog. Honestly, not even really that surprising considering what Ohio State has done in those playoffs. Those first 2 games where they were routing teams. Texas kind of close, even though the final score indicated otherwise. But relatively close game through the middle of it, I guess I should say. How you feeling? You think your former Fighting Irish get it done, or is this the Buckeyes national title?
I would like to say Marcus Freeman's there, but he's not. I just don't think he's there yet. I think this team is just one step away. Although if there's going to be a team that gets it done, it's going to be Notre Dame. This Notre Dame team specifically. Ohio State, though, as much I've talked about that game with Michigan and are you mentally strong enough to succeed, I think Ryan Day took that to heart, and he just said, "All right, I'm going to pull my hands off of this Lamborghini, and I'm going to stop trying to turn it into Toyota. I'm going to leave it as a Lambo, and I'm going to let it ride." And that's exactly what we've seen from Ohio State. This offense is playing better than it's ever played. Will Howard specifically has been playing better than he's played in recent memory, and this might be the best quarterbacking performance we're seeing from him. You have both running backs, both a pastor, and Kinshawn Judkins, a kid from Mississippi. I don't know a better way to describe him, but you have a pastor in Travion Henderson and Kinshawn Judkins running the ball. I think those two are absolutely fantastic dynamic duo. And even with Jeremiah Smith not showing up in the last game, Ohio State still pulls it off. It's hard to say that Notre Dame's ready to handle that receiving core, that running backs stable, and then not even going to start myself on the defensive line there because I have been proven wrong by them before, and so I don't want to be proven wrong by them again. So yeah, I don't know if Notre Dame gets it done, but it's going to be a great game. I think Ohio State probably wins this one, but I think it's going to be a lot closer than any betting odds say.
What I think is so I said it in the beginning of the year, Ohio State had the best roster in college football. My questions were quarterback and head coach. Those two things have stabilized and have become, they are no longer weaknesses or questions during this playoff run. Well, Howard, even if he has like that bad interception against Texas, like we saw what he did against Tennessee and Oregon, he was playing lights out. Ryan Day has been on his P's and Q's. He hasn't been playing. He's been playing like he does against everybody not named Michigan, as he should at this point. I feel like they win this one. I still think they're the best roster. Notre Dame's defense is awesome. It's well coached. Those corners are really good. The D line, what they did against Georgia, who outweighed them by 1,000 pounds per lineman, was sensational.
Without their best lineman, by the way.
Exactly. And offensively is where they worry me. Leonard's been he's been gritty. He's been just getting it done, finding ways to make just the right amount of plays off Jeremiah Love, the receivers. They do just enough to get it done. Problem is Ohio State's defense led by Caleb Downs and Sawyer and squad. That's going to be, if Ohio State jumps out 10-0 in the first quarter, it's going to be a rout, which worries me. Notre Dame has to make it ugly and gritty. Despite the goldenness of their domes, they got to get it muddy. So I'm still going to take Ohio State to win. I think they're going to cover too. I think there's just a little bit too much firepower. But we're going to talk a lot more about this later on, as we'll be part of the Belly Up Sports College Football Super Show featuring us and a handful of other Belly Up personalities on the Belly Up YouTube page. You'll definitely want to keep an eye out for that for sure. So we won't go too deep into it now. Follow us on all social medias, and we'll be sure to lead you there as soon as it is up as well. But you'll expect that before the national championship. But we've talked enough about college football. We got the finale coming up around the corner. But before that, we got to go into the main event. And for the main event, playoffs. Yes, we are back talking about playoffs. And after a little bit of a rough Saturday for both of us because we were wrong on both of those. A good Sunday for you, a miserable one for me, and a good Monday for me. Here we are as we're back in the divisional round with some betting breakdowns, picks, and predictions. So just like last week, for those of you who don't want to see a giant look at our faces, we'll go and take that down a little bit. So now you can see we'll get a little bit of a visual aid here. Starting Texans playing on Saturday, death, taxes, all in the same thing. So Texans playing their playoff game on Saturday, 4:30 at the Chiefs. Chiefs minus 8.5. If you want the Chiefs money line, you're looking at minus 440. Over under set at 21.5. Kelcey, after last week, the Texans coming alive because the Chargers are forever cursed. They are just, no matter what happens, they're cursed. Did the Texans get it done, or is it Chiefs Kingdom?
I don't want to bet against this current Chiefs team under the run they've been under for the last I think you can honestly say 5 seasons. They've been on a great roll of lately, and it's led by Andy Reid, Patty, and Travis Kelcey. Let's not forget Chris Jones on that defensive line. Between those 4, they have driven this team forward every step of the way, whether they patchwork running back core, receivers who you don't know who is there, defensive line where you outside of Chris Jones, you almost didn't know at one point in time if they were going to be good enough. Linebacking core led by what was a rookie at one point in time when he was in a Super Bowl to now 5-year vet, 3 Super Bowl vet here. Defensive backs that have rotated around the league. Yeah, it's going to be hard to beat them, but I think the Texans are interesting in the fact that they're so explosive at times that you just don't know. You don't know when Nico Collins is going to go off for another 65-yard touchdown scamper out of nowhere. You don't know when Joe Mixon's going to run over the linebacker and corner at any given time, but he's like the old Novocaine conversation where give it time, it's always going to work. It's like that. The Texans are such a wild card in how they play that I just don't know if they can get it done, but I also don't know if the Chiefs can get it done. And the 8.5-point spread terrifies me from this game. That is a terrifying spread if I'm looking at it from a Chiefs fan or from a Texas perspective. If I'm betting on either one of them, I don't like this spread. It feels too big, feels too opportunistic to try to take the Chiefs to cover that. I just don't think they can cover. The Chiefs can cover the 8.5-point spread, but at the same time, 3 Travis Kelcey touchdowns isn't out of the realm of possibility either. So I don't know. I'm not going to take the spread on this one at all. I'm not touching the spread. As I learned last week, I don't have luck betting the spread 9 times out of 10. So money line wise, though, I'm going to go ahead and say the Chiefs win, but it's going to be a lot closer than I feel comfortable taking a spread on.
Breaking the rules of the game, guy. But don't worry, I'll get us covered for this one. The
Hey,
Chiefs will cover.
this is betting picks and breakdowns, and I break the rules every time.
That's true. The Chiefs will cover the spread. The Texans are they sputter a little bit too much to be truly explosive to threaten the Chiefs for the whole game. Chiefs could be up like 21-0. Then suddenly the Texans make it 21-17, and it's weird. Then the Chiefs put it away because Hollywood Brown scampers or something. You mentioned Travis Kelcey. He hasn't really played a whole lot in a month, so he's as fresh as a daisy at this point. His exact words were he's feeling 22, so it looks like he's in good shape, ready to go. You know how the Chiefs always are. They turn it on in the playoffs. Patrick Mahomes has never lost in the divisional round, hasn't even thrown an interception in the divisional round yet. His worst game ever was his first divisional round game when they played the Colts and they won 31-18 because they just kept running the ball for the easy peasy lemon squeezy. So Chiefs cover, they win. I also think that over under, I think it's going to take the over. I think the Chiefs are going to play offense. This is going to be a bit of an offensive breakout for them a little bit. Hollywood Brown is healthy for the first time. Travis Kelce is fully healthy. Xavier Worthy, they're clicking right now. They've had time to get healthy. And that Texans interior offensive line terrifies me when you have a healthy, fully rested Chris Jones on the other side. Like that interior offensive line's getting gashed all season. And now you put in a premier defensive tackle. Texans won't cover. Chiefs win, they cover, take the over. One more in there, throw in a Travis Kelce anytime touchdown. You mentioned Travis Kelce, 3 touchdowns. If he gets 3 touchdowns, he holds the playoff record for touchdowns as a receiver. He'd break Jerry Rice's record. So that's 1 touchdown a game. I think they're going to be hunting for that. Last time he played the Texans, he scored 3 touchdowns. Last time he played Texans in the playoffs, I should say. He scored 3 touchdowns in that game alone. So take the Travis Kelce anytime touchdown on top of it.
I will say this, though. If the Chiefs are bold enough to come out in a Dallas Texans uniform and with the logos, the Texans win by 50. They do not.
50. They win, they cover.
People wear uniforms geared towards the former Texans / Houston franchises.
You know what? I probably actually like the Chiefs a little bit more than they did because I'd respect the gangster regardless. I'd hate it, but I'd respect it at the same time. But so we're looking at for the first game, second game of that night, Kelce's game of the week, and a game of 2 of his random favorites featuring an NFC East team and a not NFC East team. As the Lions will take on the Commanders. Lions right now sitting at minus 9.5 point favorites over the Commanders. We also have the minus 485 to win. Commanders at plus 370. Over under set at a comfortable 55.5. So, Kelcey, do your Commanders, as much as you hate hearing that, they're your Commanders now. Do they get it done?
My Dan Quinns, my fighting Dan Quinns, do not get it done in this one. I'm going to keep this one short and simple. I got an Amon-Ra St. Brown jersey right there. You think I'm going to pick against that man? No, I am taking the Lions straight up to cover. No chance they don't score they don't win by more than 10. The way they're playing, that team is so devastating offensively, and their defense, despite all the injuries, keeps getting it done. I don't get it, but that offense is so good. I don't know how you stop that for how the Commanders have played defense lately. And Deron Payne and his finger. Anybody seen that? I don't know if he's going to be healthy enough. I don't know. Because he sure might not want to try to tackle Jahmyr Gibbs with that finger. So, yeah, give me Lions covering 9.5 points.
I'm going to say, too, one thing I've learned about this playoffs is the team that's favorite big is favorite big for a reason, and they usually get it done. Like we talked about the Ravens and the Steelers, like this feels like too large of a spread. Well, that's because the Ravens are just better. When it comes to playoff time, if it's going to be an upset, it's not going to be in the same situation. It's very rare, if that makes sense. If the favorite's going to win, they're going to cover more often than not, it feels like. And in this case, I feel the same way with the Lions. I don't think the Commanders can get away. You got Dan Quinn and Dan Campbell. There's going to be absolutely no punting whatsoever in this game. It's going to be no field goals. It's going to be vibe checks, 4th down, and anything less than 10, they're going for it. It's Dan Campbell's game, and Dan Quinn won last week playing it. I don't think you can win twice playing that way against the original, the OG, like the founder of it, if you will. Ben Johnson's had 2 weeks to be in his bag. Aaron Glenn's had a couple of weeks to be in his bag. Guys are getting a little healthier too. That week off, I think, was huge for him. David Montgomery's even practicing again. Looks like he might play this week potentially. Jahmyr Gibbs. The Commanders' defense, still, while vastly improved behind the Fighting Dan Quinns, they can still get got at any given moment. They flipped 33 players from last year's roster to this roster. Like there's still some You can only rebuild so much in one season. They're awesome. They have a bright future. They might win the division next year and be Kelcey's favorite to the Super Bowl next year. If nothing changes between now and then, it's going to. But they're absolutely deserve the spot. I like that over because Jane Daniels has it. The way they're running the offense, it is so simple yet so complex at the same time. Like
Yeah.
it is so confusing to the defense, but it's so simple for Jane Daniels that it just works. I don't know if I can explain that very well. The football nerds get it with me. Everybody else, I'm sorry. I just spewed vomit salad all over the place. But the way the offense runs it is so simply annoying. I guess this is the best way to put it. I'll take the over. I'll take the lines to cover. I don't know what Jane Daniels over under for rushing yards is, but I'm kind of feeling that over because I think the lines coverages are going to be a little confusing. That's when you see him take off and get tackled in the most cartoonish Looney Tunes way possible, where he does a helicopter midair while getting basically slapped on the chest. Not even a hard hit, but he ends up going flying every time.
Yeah. By the way, don't forget your anytime touchdown bet here. Jameer Gibbs. It's a safe, easy option for anytime touchdown, whether it be
I'm pretty
receiving
sure
or
he's
running.
minus 400 for any time touchdown. Like the odds for him aren't even worth it. But you might as well go for 2 touchdown score.
Yeah, no, this is going to be crazy. I'm not betting against the Lions at all in this playoffs. I have been banging the drum for the Lions, just like I was banging the drum for the Commanders to get that upset last week. And shout out Zane Gonzalez, by the way, OCD awareness. Everybody wants to make fun of that hair thing. That's his OCD taking over, man, and that's respect that.
Look, I just wish I had the kind of hair to fix that much or that many times. So he's just doing it he's just covering both of our bases. So that's all there is there. So next
Fortress
up we
way,
got
though. No punts in that game.
no punts. Speaking of game that might have punts or it might not, we got Kelcey's Eagles taking on Kelcey's Rams. As we got the Eagles as minus 6-point favorites over the Rams, minus 278 for them to win, plus 225 for the Rams. Over under set at 43.5. So the Rams coming off a dominant performance over Sam Darnold and the Vikings, not playing in Southern California, which might be why they struggled. If that game would have been in LA, it might have been different. But unfortunately, with it being in Arizona, it was that might have been the turning factor. And the Eagles coming off a comfortable win over the Packers, I guess we could call it. I don't want to say dominant, considering a Packers player died every other play, it felt like. And the Eagles never really pulled away. But either way, a good win for both teams. Kelcey, you taking not your Eagles to cover this one, or are you feeling the Rams?
Yeah, I'm not going to keep this one crazy either. I'm going the same rule as the Lions here. Give me the Rams and Saquon Barkley. That this man is on a mission right now to make it to the NFC Championship game after the Giants decided to part ways with him in the most egregious fashion. I'm sorry. Like he's on a mission to determine every move this Rams team makes, or sorry, every move this Eagles teams makes. And this game should have been 29-10 last week. I mean, there's no doubt about that. He could have scored. He should have scored just to rub it in a little bit because nobody likes the Packers except for Packers fans. But yeah, no, look, Saquon. I don't care what AJ Brown wants to read on the sideline because he should go ahead and break out all 7 books from Harry Potter at this point in time because he's just going to be over there reading, and while Saquon is scampering off for nearly 200 yards is what this game feels like. So give me the Eagles in this one and to cover that 6-point spread.
The Eagles are probably better across the board. Like you're going to find very few places where the Rams are better. Like there's very few spots where they're better. Their defense has been really good for the last month. If you take out week 18, where it was like the resting people weeks, they'd already clinched the division. The other previous 4 games, they were allowing less than 10 points per game. Like their defense suddenly is really, really good. Matthew Stafford might be the best quarterback in the NFC right now, arguably debatable. Definitely the best resume when you encompass full career. Him and Sean McVay in the playoffs together are 5-1. McVay as a career is 8-3, if I'm not mistaken. Like they find ways to win games. Their only loss was a 1-point loss to the Lions last year. The Rams are really good. And that's with Cooper Kupp not quite being Cooper Kupp. They're still this good. I feel like he is bound to have not a vintage Kupp performance, but at least a cup half full at any given moment. Puka is still Puka. Kyron's still Kyron. I'm going to say the Eagles will win, but I like the Rams to cover this one. I think at +6, they're going to find a way to keep it close. And the Eagles had a very uninspiring double-digit win, if that makes sense. Like watching that game, I was like, everything is going your way, but you're up by 10. Like I know there's the Saquon pull away at the very end. I'm talking about before that. It should have been that felt like Bills Broncos. The problem was the scoreboard didn't reflect it. They just left a lot out there, it felt like, and that's been the theme in a lot of these games. If Saquon doesn't go for 200, it feels like there's a lot left out there. And I'm worried if Saquon doesn't go ballistic this game, if the Rams could keep him from rushing for 225 yards again, like he did last time, does it get a little bit iffy because that pass game is still very, I'm not going to say fluky, but it's not, they don't have a lot of efficient, quick hitting plays. A lot of drives aren't sustained through the air very often. A lot of times through the air, they hit a big play, multiple big plays. So I'm curious to see how the offense goes. But I still think the Eagles will find a way to win. I mean, you still got you got the Cooper clamps on the opposite side with Cooper DeJean. Quinyon Mitchell's still the best defensive rookie, and I stand by that going back to last March. So I'm going to take the Eagles to win, but the Rams will find a way to cover. I don't know how, but they'll find a way to cover. Matthew Stafford, I think he is that good. He is a true spinner of the football, as good as it gets, and they'll find a way to cover. Sean McVay definitely has something in his bag for this game. He'll have something in his bag to at least keep it close.
That's fair. Look, shout out Jim Murphy for the author of Inner Excellence on this one. Because the inner excellence rides with the Eagles is the obvious thing. By the way, A.J. Brown single-handedly made this former minor leaguer for the Cubs a whole lot more money than he made in his minor league career. So
like 5 million sales or something like that, or not 5
top
million.
10 on Amazon's most wanted list for books.
So shout out to both of them for sure. So that's going to take us into the main event, the penultimate, the heavyweight showdown of the weekend. The Ravens taking on the Bills. Kelcey and DJ's Ravens taking on Kelcey and DJ's Bills. We're going to call this a pick 'em because at -1.5 for the Ravens favored, basically you're calling this a push at this point. We're going to say Ravens -115, Bills -105. You're not even getting plus odds anywhere. Over under 51.5. They met in week 4, I believe it was, and the Ravens routed them 35-10. Since that point, both have been absolutely ridiculous for the most part. Like 2 of the 3 best teams in the AFC, clearly. How are we feeling, Kelcey? Are you sticking with Lamar? Does your boy Josh Allen get it done, or are you just going to flip a coin here? How are we going about this?
Oh yeah, I'm definitely flipping a coin. If we had a flip a coin segment this week, this is flip a coin game right here for sure. No, this is a tough one. This is the MVP candidate matchup, and I do mean MVP candidates because there's 3 of them in this game, and Josh and Derrick Henry and Lamar Jackson. And well, I don't know which one is better, but I will say this: 2 MVP candidates is greater than 1 MVP candidate. Especially when you look at the statistics there. So I'm going to lean that way. I'm going to go Ravens, the favorites, to win this one. 1.5 still feels like they might not cover it, to be honest. It feels like a 1-point game potentially. I just hope Lamar's ready to strap on the belt on his pants and make sure that he doesn't have to hold those up when he rushes anymore, scrambles for yards. Because Derrick Henry is going to be putting in work. We already know that. And if the Buffalo Bills are susceptible defensively to anything, it is their run game. For sure. They do also have slight errors covering seam routes up the middle of the field. And we all know Mark Andrews knows how to score on those. And we know Rashad Bateman knows how to score on those as well. So, yeah, give me the Ravens in this one. The odds, though, just crazy slim.
Even Vegas looked at this one. I was like, yeah, do your best. We're not giving any leeway on this one. Zay Flowers may or may not play. He did not practice as of Wednesday, so it's not looking great, but we'll definitely wait and see. This one's so tough because they're both so good. The Ravens are clearly the better team on paper when you look at it, but the Bills play better a lot. I think throughout the season they have played better as a sum of their parts, where the Ravens, they explode on anyone, Derrick Henry and Lamar get going. The first time they played, Matt Milano and a handful of other defensive players did not play for the Bills, so I wonder how much of a difference that can make. When Derrick Henry's first carry of the game goes for an 80-yard touchdown, that sets a very crappy tone right out of the gate that's hard to get out of. The Bills' offense has clicked a lot more since then. We remember early in the season they were a little shaky. Since then, Josh Allen has turned into a one-man wrecking crew, scoring 6 touchdowns in a game at one point. James Cook has come alive, too. He's been awesome. It's funny when you look at these teams, they are so similar and yet so different. Like the Ravens, you have an incredibly elusive runner in the backfield and then an absolute freight train. The Bills have the same thing. They just flip-flopped, and their quarterback is the freight train, where James Cook is the elusive one. They have like very similar backfields, very similar types of receiving cores. Tight ends, they're very similar. Bills' offensive line a little bit better. Ravens' defense a little bit better, I think. I'm going to lean towards the Bills because it's going to be cold. There's a good chance of snow. It's going to feel like 3 degrees, I think is what they said with wind. The Bills are a lot more used to that. The Ravens, it gets chilly there. They played in a monsoon last year, but like that snow and that Buffalo winter is a little different. I know Derrick Henry is going to be fine because Well, I know he's in Alabama and played so much of his career in Tennessee. He just hurts the tackle regardless. But I do think offensively the Bills will find a way to get just enough done. So I'm going to take the Bills. So I'll say they cover because they get the plus 1.5. But like if they were minus 1.5, I don't feel comfortable with that either. So we'll take the Bills minus 105 money line. I'm not touching that over though, or that over under, because I'm not touching that till kickoff when I see how much snow and how cold it is. Because if it's as cold as I think it's going to be and what it looks like it's going to be, that under might be enticing. But at the same time, that's the type of games where randomly Derrick Henry 80-yard touchdown. Wow, Josh Allen 80-yard touchdown, because nobody wants to tackle them. And they just end up breaking away. But we're just gonna take the Bills in this one. They will cover plus 1.5, minus 105 underdogs, whatever which one you want to take. They're identical at this point.
I respect it. I respect the choice for the Bills. I don't hate the idea of the Bills winning this. I think this is gonna, despite the weather, I think this is going to come down to whichever receiving core steps up the most. And as much as I love Amari and Keon Coleman, I don't like them more than what you have on the Ravens side of things. I just think the Ravens side is more explosive, and they've played better recently. And I think that's the difference for me. But yeah, it's going to be a tough game. I mean, good luck stopping Derrick Henry or Josh Allen. I don't envy either defensive coach in this situation.
This feels like a great game for a Khalil Shakir breakout with those end of rounds. The reverse is just getting the ball, treating him like Deebo Samuel, but 60 pounds lighter. I think this is a great way to utilize his ball with the ball in his hands ability that he has. So let us know down below what your picks are for the divisional round, what bets you might like, any breakdowns if you think our predictions are downright ridiculous, if you think Kelcey needs to take a spread for the first game, or what you all are thinking for sure. But that's going to do it for our divisional round breakdowns, and that's going to now take us into Kelcey's favorite part of every show, and that is, of course, crunch time. And for crunch time, I'm going to keep mine real short and sweet for us. UFC 311, the first pay-per-view of 2025, 2 title fights on the line. I'll be doing a full betting breakdown and predictions on that later this week as well. As soon as we get a little bit more odds to drop and everything, look out for that to come out on Friday as well. And Kelcey, of course, they should keep an eye out for a college football show that'll be coming out before the college football championship as well. So there's plenty of our faces coming around. If you don't want them, well, you can just not look at our faces and just listen to it, because what's coming out is solid gold.
Absolutely. It's going to be great. Vince will be hosting our super show for the college football playoff. Vince Stover, if you guys haven't checked out the Sports Stove podcast, check it out. He also does the Belly Up Baseball, and he will be doing Belly Up Football going forward next year as well. So, look, it's going to be a great show, highlighted by Vince as the host, but there's going to be plenty of guests. We're going to have Ohio State guests. We're going to have Notre Dame guests, and we're going to have some good friends that you may know very well from this show and shows that we appear on regularly. So be sure to check it out. That'll be dropping, we're not sure yet, Sunday or Monday. We're waiting to find out when we can all get free on the same day. But there will be an announcement made for that later this week. Honestly, probably Friday. Look out for that. And be sure to tune in. And then, guys, just a heads up going forward. If you guys watch us on YouTube, we will post our clips on YouTube on our normal High Low Sports YouTube page. But we will be releasing episodes Thursday mornings on the Belly Up YouTube page moving forward. It'll be like 4 a.m. So it'll be right there when you wake up, ready to go for your drive into work. And that'll be on the Belly Up YouTube page. Links will be in our description next week. And then also be on all of our social media platforms as well. So be sure to stay tuned for that as we move forward through the 2025.
Those of you listening right now, nothing really changes right now since we're not live on YouTube at this moment either way. So those of you here with us right now, not a thing will change if you do what you're doing now next week. So that's just something to keep an eye out for moving forward. And of course, if you miss some of the stream, you can catch the full episode on that Belly Up YouTube page. So if you need to go back or rewind or yell at one of us for our predictions or anything in between, or tell Kelcey he's wrong about the Mike McCarthy situation, whatever you need to do, that's where you'll be able to find us, and we'll be able to see and respond to those comments for sure. But we do appreciate y'all for hanging out with us this weekend, and we will see you all again next week.